Good evening, everybody. I'm Cade Kennedy alongside Connor Gray, and this is another edition of the Guys Who Stare at Stats. Now, there's no better way to start October than really talking about the Fall Classic coming up. We have the MLB playoffs already started 2 days ago.
Yep.
We've already had the AL and NL wild cards. I was watching Houston earlier today, absolutely thrashing the White Sox now in game one of their series. But I think that's the main story we need to start with. As they say in Boston, the Yankees lose.
Yeah. And majority of the country relishes in it.
The majority of the country very happy. Boston gets a 6-2 win. They get the Rays now, so that'll be a very interesting matchup with Boston, who I honestly did not think was going to play as well as they did.
I was just kind of astonished because they're kind of a mixed bag on how they played most of this year. It's basically just been they had hot streaks and then they've played like doo doo. Them and the Yankees just were not consistent the whole year. So I was expecting this one to be like very low scoring, kind of just like none of the batting really showing up. But Boston came out and played.
I mean, Boston set the tone right out of the gate. I mean, when Bogarts hits a home run, 427 to center, first inning, that crowd is juiced up. Their Fenway was overflowing with people. They were over 100% capacity for this game.
Oh, I bet.
Which, I mean, anytime you get Red Sox Yankees, that's going to happen. You add the winner go home into the mix. It's going to, especially.
Makes it a lot more interesting, especially now since Red Sox got one over on their rival in New York.
Exactly. I mean, it was just such a, not really a good game to watch since about midway through you figured, okay, this is going to be a classic. The Yankees do nothing and lay an egg, and the Red Sox just kind of get to walk on them.
Yep, pretty much.
But it was a very fun game to watch. The energy was just so fun to see, seeing Fenway come alive as they did. But the other game, the NL Wild Card, my Cardinals, unfortunately, they couldn't get it done. But you know what? Here's what I am going to say. Here's what I am going to say about St. Louis. I'm still proud of this team.
You have every reason to, because they went from being not even remotely having a shot to somehow managing to get their way into a wild card spot.
If you would have told me in late June to July, when the Cardinals were trying to avoid being fourth in the NL Central, that they were going to take the defending champions to the final out in the wild card, I would have said, what in the world are you talking about, and what fantasy world are you living in? And where can I join? But, I mean, the Cardinals did just that. Strong start for St. Louis. And, I mean, they did everything perfectly those first 3 innings. Wainwright does his thing. They made Max Scherzer look incompetent, which is very difficult to do.
The thing is, the great thing they did, because Scherzer over time was starting to get back into his groove, it seemed like. Eventually, it was just like they managed to get his pitch count way high.
Exactly. He had 94 pitches, and it was like the 4th inning.
You're doing a good job. You're able to keep him out there on the mound and keep throwing. You're not ending those innings early. That way, it gives him more chances to keep everything to stay out there. Because if he stayed out there, good Lord, that was going to be a bit of an issue. But then again, it probably still would have stayed either 1-0 or 1-1.
Exactly.
I mean, because obviously other things he did fine for the rest of the time, not allowing runs, but good Lord, that was a good job by the Cardinals to get him out quickly.
Exactly. And then Justin Turner hits a big home run in the bottom of the 4th, ties it up at 1. In comes Joe Kelly, and what felt like the most ridiculous 5th through 9th inning I've ever seen of a Cardinals game, where it was like, all right, you knocked out our all-star pitcher. Let's bring in our other all-star pitcher. And it was like, okay, cool. They're going to run out of depth eventually, right? It felt like every inning we had to learn about a new all-star pitcher the Dodgers just mysteriously pull out of their back pocket.
Surprise.
Exactly. It's like, here's our trump card, and our trump card, and our triple trump card. It felt like they had an entire stacked deck against the Cardinals. And
the thing is with the Dodgers, like everyone knows, but they're like in regards to the luxury tax they put on baseball teams for overspending on their salary cap. The Dodgers do not care. They're
Exactly.
Like, we will buy all the best players and we will win World
And
Series.
I knew this would be the challenge St. Louis would run into, but the fact they were able to every inning somehow battle through it, and then seeing the difference night and day of here's all the all-stars the Dodgers have, and the Cardinals are like, we got 3 guys.
It's like with 3 guys.
We got these 3 guys. We know we're gonna do good. That's about it. But they were able to do it. And then TJ McFarland comes in the bottom of the ninth. And I'm thinking this is kind of an interesting call. This is where Alex Reyes used to come in. He had the 20 saves in a row. He was an all-star, and then he just kind of fell off a cliff, and it turned into a very ugly situation in June and July, or mainly after the all-star break, where just kind of everything went wrong every time he came out onto the mound. The walks became an issue, hitting batters became an issue, and so we stopped playing him, and then the 17-game win streak happened. I'm not saying he's the only reason, obviously.
No,
the Cardinals' bat's getting
there's
hot.
multiple reasons why.
But that was a big factor, I think, in terms of like the 1 or 2 run games.
Yeah.
And so 2 outs, bottom of the ninth, and TJ McFarland walks, I believe it was Bellinger. And so then we see, and we're going to make a call to the pen. And in my mind, I'm just thinking, what? We walked a guy. That's okay. There are 2 outs. Just strike him out. That's all you have to do. All you've got to do is get Taylor out, and you send this to extras. And then we get Arenado coming up. That's all we have to do. I didn't think I was going to be this invested this late in the game. And then in comes Alex Reyes, and 4 pitches later, you could not serve them a better ball.
Oh, yeah.
Let's throw it right down the middle, fastball in the middle of the strike zone, and let's just let him hit it.
I was actually thinking about watching. I'm like, when I was just seeing how that was playing, I was like, the Dodgers are going to walk this off. Like, somehow, some way, regardless of whether it ends in the ninth or goes to extra, they're going to walk this off. And
well, I mean, when the first guy to show up was Albert Pujols, and he was about a few feet from hitting it out of there, I was just like, if we get walked off by Albert Pujols, I won't even be mad. I'll just be impressed that we found another impressive way to lose. But it didn't happen, and it was like, okay, that was the only acceptable option of losing. We have to win this now.
Yep.
But Dodgers get a win. They get the Giants. That's going to be such a fun series to keep an eye on.
That's a series I think I kind of wish would be best out of 7 instead of like a 5, because those are the 2 best teams in the NL.
You could make the argument those are the best 2 teams in baseball, period, this year.
But you had it basically. But what I mean is that those 2 teams, like, these 2 teams, I think, would be more better if they would have just met up in the NL in the championship series. Instead, they're having to meet up in the NLDS.
Exactly. So I'm sure the Brewers are very happy they don't have to deal with either one.
They got to deal with Atlanta. So
yeah. I mean, they still have a threat, but you if you're a Brewers or Braves fan, you at least have to enjoy that your prizes you get the Dodgers and Giants getting to beat each other up, hopefully. You hope that series goes all 5 games.
Yep. And you better hope that you can either sweep or only lose 1 game in yours. Otherwise, you're going to be just as beat up as they are.
Exactly. And if you're the Braves, as a Cardinals fan, I have some advice. Don't give up 10 runs in the first inning this time. If you do that again, I'm sure the Brewers will be very happy. I still don't know how that one happened, but
don't worry about it.
Exactly. As a Cardinals fan, you learn not to worry about things, except when you need to. Then you worry. But
alrighty then.
But speaking of worrying, that was the theme of the NFL pretty much last week.
Oh yeah.
Worrying about what is happening. Why is it upset week all of a sudden? Why did the Jets win a game? I don't understand.
Questions that only God can answer.
I don't even know if he knows the answer to why the Jets won. I don't think anyone knows how the Jets won. No one knows why they won. Derrick Henry ran for 157 yards. Tannehill throws for 300, and they still couldn't win.
Just failing to convert on certain drives, I guess, and just
I know.
not doing that team. Like with all the talent that's on the Titans, how do you? It's like they should have blown the Jets out. especially when they've played against really good teams like Seattle and some others and have beaten them. So it makes me wonder. It's like, did they just think this was just going to be a cakewalk? Like they didn't have to play.
I don't know.
I mean, for granted, the statistics show they showed up to play, but the team as a whole, like you still lost to the Jets in overtime.
Well, I mean, to be completely honest, the Titans were lucky to even make it to overtime. It took
True.
the Jets completely forgetting how to play defense for the final minute and a half for the Titans to even walk down the field.
Yep.
And one thing I do have to say, to give credit to the Jets, we make fun of them a lot, but they absolutely deserve credit for this.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the hits I saw them laying on Derrick Henry, especially late in the game and in overtime, I didn't know you were allowed to actually knock him to the ground. I didn't know that was legal. You're so used to Derrick Henry just bulldozing over people, and see him actually get rocked quite a few times was just like, did I see that correctly? Is everything okay?
And also Zach Wilson actually.
Zach Wilson playing extremely well. He had a couple of moments where it felt like he looked like he was his old self at BYU again, where he's able to, all right, I'm going to throw it 40 yards downfield. I have faith in my receivers, and it pays off.
I think it was just they finally just let. It feels like the Jets kind of just let him loose, and
they let him be himself, and it was very fun to see.
Well, it's like I still, like, in all honesty, Tennessee still should have won that game, but props to Jets to getting their first win, especially against a really good team in the Titans.
Exactly, and New York had a very successful weekend in the NFL. Because the ultimate wild card is back. Jameis Winston's wild card continues, as the Saints might as well just be the 2018 Buccaneers in Saints colors at this point. I mean, this was a weird game to watch as well. Daniel Jones throws for 402 yards.
Actually looks like an all-star.
It looks amazing. The Giants also go to overtime, and Saquon Barkley is able to walk it off.
I think it's mainly just amounts to that it's not just the offense that's having problems. That Saints defense has been an issue for all through Drew Brees' careers due to all kinds of mishaps and just sometimes just not playing well at all. Despite the fact they've had years where they played well for the most part.
Exactly.
They have their relapses where they just can't play well. This is just, if you're a Saints fan, you're really got to start looking at where the problem is, whether it be looking at your defense or Jameis Winston or the rest of the offense or the coaching. It's like,
well, I think
you just can't lose to the Giants.
I think that is the problem. Is there are too many problems.
And the problem in the worst scenario is you just blow everything up.
Exactly.
Like, well, it would get rid of the current issues. It would bring up all new issues because you have to bring in new coaching, add different players. It's like, is this where Saints just try to rebuild, or do they try to? I know with the players they have, you think that they got to get playoff, which that's the goal for every team. But if things are just not going to work out the way they have been for the Saints because they're not playing well, it feels like that game against Green Bay was just a fluke.
Now, I don't think every team's goal is to make the playoffs. As Jacksonville has a different goal. Their goal is to embarrass themselves as much as possible.
Did I say Jacksonville was a part of that?
They are a team in the NFL.
They're a glorified college team.
I mean, I don't think you'd have college coach Urban Meyer doing what he did. If you saw any of, if you know that story, you know what happened. For the people who do not know, the Jags got beat on Thursday Night Football after blowing a lead against Cincinnati. Cincinnati gets a 24-21 win. Joe Burrow has a big comeback. Everything looks great for Cincy. They look good so far.
Yeah.
Dare I say,
very good.
The Bengals actually look good.
Well, it's like, and I know we're still talking about with Urban Meyer, but the entire AFC North, except the Steelers, is 3-1. Everyone, some of them have played some really good teams. Baltimore playing well. Cincy being great. The Browns being good.
Despite Baker having a torn labrum, that came out early.
There was a meme that was kind of going around where it showed that the Steelers were like like if you know anything about teenage, it's like where it's like Steelers are the best team versus everyone else being like the little children,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden the Steelers are like the old man, and the rest are like, yeah, we're good.
Yeah, eventually that's pretty accurate to what happened with Pittsburgh. They're just Big Ben's not it.
And there's also supposedly he's hurt his hip,
Mm-hmm.
and now I believe Steelers are probably going to go with Mason Rudolph as their coach because reports showing that Tomlin's very confident in Rudolph.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see what the Steelers do because that's one part is Big Ben. The other part is the play calling. There were so many questionable moments. I mean, I feel bad because we're going to get to Urban Meyer at some point, but we got to build that story up. We got to let that. We got to let you think about what he did. But to kind of finish talking about Pittsburgh and Green Bay did what Green Bay was going to do. Everyone expected Aaron Rodgers would ball out.
Yep.
He did.
I know.
Pittsburgh decided they were going to run a brilliant strategy of, hey, it's 4th and 5. Do you A, throw for 5 yards, B, throw for 10 yards, C, try to run the ball for some reason, or D, throw a 1-yard flat route to Najee Harris with 2 guys on him who are going to tackle him the second he catches the ball. If you chose D, congratulations. You're either Ben Roethlisberger or someone very close to him.
Yeah. All knows it's like with that kind of play calling, it's like especially those short passes constantly. I'm like, are you trying to get your receivers killed?
I don't,
because it's like Najee Harris is basically about to get his head knocked off with those passes to the middle of the field running sideways.
Well, it wasn't even just him. It was like a lot of.
It was all of them.
Yeah, I mean, there was even one play where James Washington had a nice play where he dove for 3 yards to make it a 5th and 2, which, as you know, would be a turnover on downs. There is no 5th down. Yeah. But he was like so adamant he got the first down. I thought it was very hilarious. Late in the game where the Steelers had no chance by that point anyway. Yeah. But he's like, I got the first down. It was like, you were about 2 yards short of the first down, buddy. I don't know if you guys know where the sticks are, but you're clearly short.
Yep.
But getting back to Urban Meyer finally, because I think this might have been the most hilarious story of the week. And I'm going to tell you how I found out about it. So I was, having a good day watching college football on Saturday, and I go to check Twitter, as you do after every OU win, and see how people are celebrating and or criticizing and or having a full-on meltdown about things. Because OU has people in that fan base. We won by 6, but that's never enough. If we literally don't win every game 63-0, we have failed as a team. I don't know why those people are like that, but they exist for some reason. And so I see that Urban Meyer is trending. And I go, that's kind of funny. I wonder what he did. And then I was greeted to several pictures of him partying at bars with a lot of younger women. And I was just kind of like, okay, this is weird. And then his wife, I believe, sent out a tweet like, and here I am babysitting the kids.
Yeah. Yes.
And it was just like, oh, this is going to be, I wonder, and I was just like, and then the next thing I saw was like Urban Meyer about to have to retire with heart problems a second time, which I thought was very funny. But, and then there was so much turmoil in Jacksonville, and I didn't think it could get any worse. I honestly didn't. I thought they had already hit rock bottom. They have now hit rock bottom and have somehow found themselves in the inner core of the earth at this point.
Urban Meyer, with what he did, I think he's pretty much just lost all respect from a lot of people in Jacksonville.
I think not only the town, but the ownership was mad at him. I've heard of some of the players have lost respect for him already.
I don't doubt that.
And I mean, at this point, if you're Jacksonville, I think Urban Meyer is gone after this year. I think this was a complete disaster of a hire. This has been absolutely...
Well, the thing is, with the way Jacksonville is already as a team, didn't matter because we know they were going to get Lawrence and some of these other players that they drafted. It was like it didn't matter who was running the ship as the head coach. Everything
you knew it was going to be a bad year.
The start was already going to be the exact same way.
Yes,
they're still going to be winless, but the fact that he went out did that and with younger girls, it's like okay.
But instead of the story being, hey, Jacksonville actually looked competitive for a game with Cincinnati, maybe they're showing some signs of improvement, all the media fire and all the attention got put to what the heck is Urban Meyer doing? And I mean, he deserves it. I don't know what he was doing. I honestly don't know why you
I
would
just
do
know
that.
like one of the videos that like the girl was on him, like kind of on him dancing, and he just kind of just sat there.
Yeah, it was a
It was
very
just like it was uncomfortable to
it
watch.
was very uncomfortable to watch.
Just the fact he's a grown, he's a like he's like 30 years older than that girl, and it's like, bruh.
Now, I do have something slightly more uncomfortable than that, and that is Atlanta football. The Falcons continued to be the Falcons. That's about all I can say at this point
They are
with
the
Atlanta.
ultimate chokesters.
I mean, they're pretty good at it. I
don't
wouldn't
think
say
anyone
they're
can
the.
top them.
I mean, I think that's just Georgia sports in general is pretty good, except for Atlanta United and MLS, but
Yeah.
they can actually win games. But the Falcons did what the Falcons did best. They looked good for about 3 quarters playing the Washington football team, and then decided, oh, it's that time of the week again. I guess I'm just going to forget how to play football.
And I feel bad for Matt Ryan.
I do
Right?
too.
It's like there's quite a few players that are on that team. It's like you guys need to get on a better team. You don't Atlanta doesn't deserve you.
I would like to see if Matt Ryan was put on almost any other team, how well would he do? How well would that team do? Is he just determined to stick it out in Atlanta? Like, I don't know at this point.
Well, with how much they're paying him, it's like he has no reason to really leave. And also they have no one. I don't think anyone's really interested in trading for him.
Exactly.
Even though he would be a great boost. Like for instance, like if he went to LA, that team automatically gets a lot. Like I think in many ways probably just a little better than Stafford.
Yeah.
But that's not saying Stafford's not any.
I was like
less
Stafford's kind of the same position, I think.
He
Stafford was in the same position I think Ryan is in currently.
It's like when Ryan first got there, they were on an upward trajectory of being because they went to the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Over it feels like almost like 5 years ago, and then now it's like now he's where
the window has fully shut.
He's where Detroit is.
Yes, the window was already shut. That
It's been
happened a long time ago.
It was shut. I think the year they choked.
Yeah, it was shut right after 28-3 started.
Yep.
The second the Patriots tied that game up, the door shut.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of doors getting shut, that was what Buffalo did to Houston. This was honestly the most depressing game of the day. Buffalo gets a 40-0 win. Houston continues to look extremely unimpressive. It was so bad with the rain and everything there that the announcer's feed actually cut out. So the people in the studio at CBS had to actually commentate the entire fourth quarter of the game.
Ooh.
So we got to hear a 5-person announcer crew, which was kind of entertaining though. And so it was kind of interesting hearing their thoughts and perspectives. Like, okay, they're going to do this. Okay, they're going to do this, which was neat to see.
Yeah, it's always neat. It's neat to get a different. That's a unique thing. Kind of wish that they would have like a, whether it be on a stream or on another channel where they just have those guys can just kind of give their thoughts on games instead of just like waiting until it hits halftime.
And then it was just really, what can you say about that game? Josh Allen did what Josh Allen was going to do. The Bills looked good. That's really all you could say about this one. And Chicago and Detroit, the next game up here to talk about. Chicago looked decent. I mean, Justin Fields looked a whole lot better.
Yeah.
And they had some issues at the end where they tried to let Detroit back in it. Detroit had some, I don't know if just Detroit in the fourth quarter is a good team, but the first 3 quarters is not, or
now if it pretty much is going to be like that, Detroit's got to figure out, hey, we need to actually do this all 4 quarters.
Yeah, Detroit's got to figure out how to put all 4 quarters together because Jared Goff had some good moments. I mean, they had some really decent drives, I thought, throughout most of the game, but they just failed to execute. And then in the fourth quarter, they finally executed.
Detroit's just that weird. Is just weird.
And then Chicago did what I kind of wanted them to do: have Fields, but rely on your defense and your strong run game. And then David Montgomery gets injured, and he'll be out 4 to 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bears are about to go through a pretty difficult stretch here. I mean, they got the Raiders and Packers coming up in the next few weeks. And that's not even, that's 2 of the few teams they're going to play in a row.
Yep.
And then it was just really not a good week to be in the NFC South. Carolina goes to Dallas. Sam Darnold actually had 2 rushing touchdowns in this game, which was kind of neat to think about. Because we don't think of him that much as a runner.
No, but he's showing he's willing to he can take hits.
Exactly, but so far, Dallas has looked really good this year. The Cowboys have shown they're actually looking like a legitimate team so far.
So far, but it was basically with Carolina. I know they went 3-0, and then they finally played a real team per se.
Yeah,
I would say real as in like someone that's actually can give them a lot of problems.
Someone who we expected to be good, basically.
Dallas has actually somehow managed to figure out to play defense, and obviously their offense, we know with Dak being there, they can do stuff.
And they gave the ball to Ezekiel Elliott,
yep,
and he did pretty well, rushing for 143 on the day.
I will say Dak is leagues better than where he was the last few years.
Yes.
Like, this is his best year since his rookie season.
This entire Dallas team just looks a whole lot better. They look like an actual unit of a team. They don't look like just a couple of pieces. And, maybe if we get a little fixing here.
Wow, both sides of the ball actually being good under Mike McCarthy. What a shock.
I know. But Carolina put up a valiant effort at the end, but it just was not enough. They got in too big of a hole earlier on in the game.
Yeah, but I'd say valiant effort by Carolina to try to make that game close. And good job for Dallas.
Exactly. And kind of jumping a little bit on the list here, kind of going to go out west real quick to talk about some big games. How good did Arizona look?
They were flawless. It's like, I'm like, so this whole Cliff Kingsbury experiment is working.
Yes, the Cliff Kingsbury experiment of hiring a guy who had 0 defenses at Texas Tech, but was very good on offense, has worked for Arizona, because in the NFL, you're going to have a defense.
Yep.
And Arizona's defense looked extremely good against the Rams. A 37-20 win for Arizona. Kyler Murray looked great. Everyone looked great for Arizona.
It was a flawless performance.
It really was. And I mean, and the Rams were getting like hyped up. They were the talk of the NFL.
Yep.
Did you see what they did to the Buccaneers? And then Arizona just comes in and blows them out and walks off with, hey, we're 4-0. You're going to show us the same respect? And I think they have proven they deserve that respect.
Right now, they're the team.
They're the team
to be. It's like, yeah, I know the Bucks. I know Rams got blown up, but Rams are still good. Just they didn't have a great game. And just Arizona's just playing so much better.
And the NFC West, it will be a buzzsaw, and this is proven, I think, in the next game. Seattle and San Francisco. This was a game that was a game. That's about the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Things happened. We're not sure if they actually happened or not, but Seattle gets a 28-21 win. Seahawks look pretty, I wouldn't say good. They still had some issues to work out.
They had some issues, but they looked more competent.
They looked, yes, they did.
I mean, they're still a really good team, but they weren't together for the last 2 games, but they've been playing a lot better.
And if you're a Niners fan, you got to see Trey Lance a little bit late in the game.
Because Garoppolo now is dealing with a calf injury. But
exactly. So
they're not sure how severe it is. I haven't been updated.
I haven't been either.
So we'll find out Sunday whether Garoppolo. Of course, you have many Niners fans that are like, "Yay, Garoppolo's out of the way. We can get Trey Lance." It's like Trey Lance is still a rookie who is not perfect. Yeah, he played pretty decently.
It's weird to me that that's kind of the mentality. Chicago, I can kind of understand a bit more because
they've been in a turmoil.
You had to deal with Mitch Trubisky. I'm so sorry, but the Niners, I don't understand because like Garoppolo's a solid quarterback.
When Garoppolo's not dealing with injuries, he's solid. I mean,
exactly.
He's not the greatest quarterback.
It's like, did we forget that they went to the Super Bowl, just a few years ago against the Chiefs?
Because they didn't win it, therefore it automatically makes Garoppolo a bad quarterback.
Yeah.
It's mainly because
how dare he lose a Super Bowl to one of the greatest offenses?
It's mainly because I think it mainly just boils down to they want the young dude, despite the fact
exactly
Garoppolo's is still in his late 20s.
Exactly.
So it's like Garoppolo's not an old man.
The old saying will always hold true. Everyone's favorite player on the team is the backup quarterback.
So, but it's like I understand they want Trey Lance because he's obviously going to be the future for San Francisco after Garoppolo's contract expires. But I just don't really get the attitude of the 49ers fans. It's like Garoppolo is still good. You guys still have a lot of your great players still available. When Garoppolo because and the thing is Shanahan has clarified that when Garoppolo is back, he will start. So anyone that was thinking that Trey Lance is now going to be the starter from now on, well, you're out of luck. But it's like the 49ers are still in it. They can still turn everything around.
Exactly. They're still a very talented team.
Like they're not doing bad. They're just having a few mishaps here and there.
Exactly. We're not even week 5 is this week. There's still a lot of time to turn everything around.
We still have like 13 more weeks left.
Yes. And then Indianapolis getting a 27-17 win against Miami.
Ooh.
This was not what I expected. I expected Miami to come out with a little bit more fire, but Indianapolis looked, I wouldn't say they looked good because they still had their moments of, okay, that happened, I guess. But they looked a lot better. They looked improved. Carson Wentz looked fine. Everything's been going well there. Miami just did not look good.
No.
They really didn't. They didn't do anything until late in the game. It was very odd to see.
It's just like I think it's like when you make the Colts look really good on offense, there's some problems. For granted, the Colts I still think can play better than where they've been playing. Miami just didn't really. I think that defense just wasn't really there. It's probably some bad play coverages and just Colts just looked good for the game.
They did,
but once again, you still have Colts can still fix. It still needs a lot of things to fix for where they want to get where they want to be.
And then next game we got up here, Baltimore getting a 23-7 win over the Broncos. Now, I've seen a lot of people using this as justification to make fun of Denver for, haha, you can't actually beat a real team. Which, Denver still has to prove Denver still has to prove they have to beat a good team. But they didn't play terrible. I understand that Drew Lock had to enter the game. I understand that they were already losing by the point Teddy Bridgewater got injured, but I thought they did a decent job. That defense looks pretty solid for the Broncos.
It's like from what I've seen of Drew Lock and of course Teddy Bridgewater, it's like Drew Lock has potential to be a lot better than where he is.
Yes.
Statistics career-wise are showing that he's not that great, but it's like I've seen him play in certain games. He can ball out. Just the issue is just he can't do it consistently. And obviously Teddy Bridgewater is a better quarterback than he is.
Obviously.
But it's just one of those things is that I really don't know.
Yeah, you knew the Ravens were going to put points on the board. That was the thing that was expected. They held them to 23, which I think that's a pretty solid job by the defense.
The thing is that overall for most of that game, Denver just really wasn't able to do much because the Ravens were just that much better than they were.
Yeah, and I think Denver will be kind of an interesting team to watch this year because I think they won't make the playoffs, but they'll be one of those weird in-the-hunt teams for a week or two, and we'll have that conversation of, really? What? Why? And then they'll immediately bow out, and everybody will be like, well, that happened, I guess.
Yep.
You get one of those teams every year where you just kind of scratch your head as to how are they even in the conversation? They literally have looked terrible half the year. I think Denver will be that team this year.
Probably.
And then they'll have a little bit of false hope for next year. But speaking of false hope, that was a lot of New England on Sunday night. Tampa Bay comes in.
You had 28 million people watching that
Yes,
game.
A lot of people wanted to see this. Tampa Bay comes in. Tom Brady returns to Gillette Stadium, going back to Foxborough. Just such a fun game. And Tampa getting a 19-17 win off the classic doink. You get a missed field goal bouncing off the posts. What more could you ask for? Obviously you could ask for New England to actually make the kick and win the game, but you knew that wasn't going to happen. Tom Brady's not allowed to lose in Foxborough.
Nope. Even if he's on another team.
Even if he's on the opposite team, he is still not allowed to lose in Fox. It's somewhere in his contract, I think.
something like that.
And then Monday night game, very impressive showing by the Chargers, getting a 28-14 win over Vegas.
I was watching that. I'm just like, man, Chargers are just that much better than.
I also enjoyed the weather delay that happened inside a domed stadium.
That was the one. Yeah, that was the most confusing thing. It was like, why is this? They're in a dome stadium. Why do you have to? It's like there's not the roof isn't opened up. It's like it's closed off.
Also, it rained in Los Angeles, which is equally weird to think about, but they don't get a lot of rain out there in California.
They didn't. Apparently, I guess when making that dome, they didn't think that they were ever going to have to deal with lightning storm.
I guess so.
Whatever.
But kind of ending it with our two teams here. Cleveland gets a 14-7 win. Completely normal win. Don't pay attention and don't look at this, please. Don't
look how bad Baker played.
Yeah, don't look at Baker Mayfield trying to throw the ball with a torn labrum in his shoulder and try to act like he's completely fine, because he is not fine. But credit to the Browns defense. Minnesota had one drive where they scored, and it was 7.5 minutes long, and I hated every minute of it. And then Cleveland had a 7.5-minute drive right after that, and I loved every minute of it. It felt like one of those weird games where it was like, all right, one of us is going to have a 10-minute drive at some point in this game, and it's going to be beautiful to watch. We never got there, but we got darn close.
Pretty close.
I mean, the Browns defense showed up. They did exactly what they had to do. Kind of, okay, Baker's not having a good day. He's playing not very well, 13 for 32 on the day passing, and so we're going to just run the ball. We have Nick Chubb. We have Kareem Hunt. Let's just run the ball. Did I mean run the ball? I mean, it's 3rd and 7. Let's have Baker throw off his back foot on a weird play and throw an incompletion for some reason. I did not understand a lot of the play calling late in the game when the Browns were trying to put it away. I was just thinking, you can kill 40 more seconds here. There's no reason to throw the ball, but I guess Stefanski didn't see it that way. It was a very confusing game, but at the end of the day, a win is a win. The Browns are 3-1.
That's really all you can really say. Say as long as you just get the win, no matter how bad it looked.
Exactly.
I mean, just it was bad.
I mean, the same thing could be said about the Chiefs defensively. You gave up 30 to the Eagles. This is unacceptable. I mean, granted, you got 42. Chiefs getting the 42-30 win, but I watched a little bit of this, and every time I turned over, it felt like the Eagles or Chiefs were in the red zone. It was one of those games where it was like, what is defense? I don't understand.
Players not really showing up, and I think there's some issues with play calling. And I can't really say much about this game due to the fact that I couldn't really watch it because it wasn't available.
A certain other game was on.
This is why
that'd be the Browns game.
No, Browns should not even be on Oklahoma television.
Yes, they should.
No, they shouldn't.
Yes, they should.
No, they shouldn't.
The people of Oklahoma demand more Baker Mayfield content and News 9 delivery.
Because what is having a football team?
No, we don't. We're not allowed to have a football team in Oklahoma, I guess.
Apparently, none of them can choose whether being a Dallas fan or being a Chiefs fan or whatever. That's close around here.
No, I mean, Southern Oklahoma is pretty solid about being Cowboys or Texans or Saints. There are quite a few Saints fans I met in Southern Oklahoma. But I've noticed once you get really north of the Oklahoma City metro, if you're not a Chiefs fan or a Cowboys fan, and Northeast Oklahoma, the Tulsa area, I think kind of leans more Chiefs. But especially out here in Northwest Oklahoma where we're at, you just kind of pick a random team and follow them, is kind of what I've noticed. Now, I think I've seen a lot more people doing what I do, which is follow the team the Oklahoma quarterback goes to. We're big Baker Mayfield fans.
Still the wrong way to go about it.
In this state, we stand Baker Mayfield. And
I don't care if you stand Baker Mayfield. You can support him all you want. The fact is that you don't have a team.
Exactly.
You can't just follow a random team out of nowhere and be like, oh, I'm all of a sudden a Browns fan when you were never one to begin with.
We're just kind of journeyman fans, I guess is the best way to put it.
And this is why I despise anyone that just claims to be an NFL fan but yet has no team.
I never technically claimed to be an NFL fan. I like watching the NFL, but I'll always be a fan of college football over the NFL, is how I view it personally. You can disagree with me on that all you want. That's perfectly fine, but that's how I've always viewed it. But speaking of the NFL, still on it, kind of get your preview set up for tonight's game. The Rams and the Seahawks, Thursday night, big-time game. The NFC West bloodbath continues. No one is allowed to be good in this division, I think, except Arizona and Los Angeles and Seattle
No, everyone's
and
good.
San Francisco.
Well, everyone's good. The problem is they got to play each other.
Exactly.
Twice.
That's what I was getting at. But I think this will be a really fun game. I'm excited to see what Russell Wilson and the Seahawks do at home. It's on Fox for the first time this year. We get the Thursday night game on Fox.
Surprised it's even on Fox.
I know. Well, I think the way they do it in September is try to get people to watch NFL Network. They realize it never works, and so then they put it on Fox.
True.
But it'll be an interesting game to see. I mean, seeing how the Rams bounce back will be interesting to
it's
see.
actually a good game on Thursday is actually, I think, very
Rare.
helpful. Well, it's rare, but I think it should be like that's why I think a lot like when you do majority of your Thursday night games, they should always be at least a good matchup. I mean, for granted, obviously you can't help how teams turn out, but it's like you can only hope that there's actually good games. That way, people will actually watch.
Yeah.
Instead of like, it's just the Jags and the Redskins or whatever. The football team. Pardon me.
We can't say that word.
Sorry, it's just a force of habit. It's still weird calling them the football team.
Just call them the.
I'm not doing that.
It's very fun to say, but speaking of things that are fun to say, the Jets have to play the Falcons, and one of those teams has to win that game.
Take bull.
Also, I hope London enjoys that game because this is the London game. 8:30 in the morning Central Time. So get up early to watch the Jets play the Falcons at the home of Tottenham Hotspur. You'd be better off watching Arsenal play some other random Premier League team like Norwich City or something and probably get more entertaining results.
Well, they'd draw in a bigger crowd.
You probably would, but I really do not understand why this is the game that was put in London.
It's like why not put of two teams that you know that are going to be good? Why not put them in London?
No, I guess
it gives hey, these are actually good football teams.
I guess this is our payback for 1776. You guys colonized us, so we're gonna terrorize you with our worst teams. You want an NFL expansion team? We'll move someone out there who is terrible. I don't know. I honestly think this is going to be my favorite game of the day because I think this is going to be a very evenly matched game, and it's going to finish like 35-31 or something random.
Like that.
It'll be a very weird game to watch, and I'll still be asleep like through half of the game. I'll still be waking up, so
I probably won't even watch any of it.
It'll be entertaining to see. But this game I'm about to talk about won't be entertaining to see. Miami has to go to Tampa Bay. That's not going to be a fun time for the Dolphins.
Nope, not at all.
Tampa Bay's still firing on all cylinders despite kind of having a slump in New England. You were able to get out with a win.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was more kind of the conditions there, everything
it's
going on.
mainly conditions.
But it'll be interesting to see how that game goes as well. Now, Denver goes to Pittsburgh, and this is another one that I talked about where I think Denver has the potential purely because I don't know what the Steelers are going to look like. Switching quarterbacks to Mason Rudolph maybe, or I don't know what they're going to do per se, but if they throw Roethlisberger out there and they do that little 2-yard slant thing again, Denver will eat them up, and it will be a very entertainingly weird game.
I'll get to dance. If that happens, we get to dance on Pittsburgh's grave again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm down with a 1-4 start for the Steelers.
I think most of us.
I think 95% of America is okay with that. Well, not 95%. There are Steelers fans literally everywhere.
It counts.
But Detroit goes up to Minnesota. This will be, I think, a Minnesota victory. I think they'll do what they've been doing. They've looked solid. They just can't close out a game. And Detroit's the complete opposite, where they can close out a game, but they don't look solid for the first 3 quarters.
Yep, they'll finally get their second win.
Yes, one of these teams will learn how to win a game in the 4th quarter this week.
You can only hope who it is.
Yeah, you can only hope if you're a fan of either team, and if you're neutral, maybe it'll be a tie. Maybe it'll be something silly like that.
So, knowing how how these teams have played so far. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens.
And then Green Bay goes to Cincinnati.
Ooh, that's gonna be a fun one.
This will be a fun one, seeing how the Bengals have improved so far this year. Joe Burrow gets another tough test going up against the Packers. I think this will be a pretty neat game to see. This was a good measuring stick for Cincinnati. How good truly are the Bengals?
Yep.
And we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out.
And then New Orleans going to Washington. This will be a very interesting game because we'll find out. Does Washington still have somewhat of a defense at all? I don't know.
I don't know.
I honestly do not know. I guess we'll find out. Either Jameis Winston will throw 5 touchdowns or he'll throw 3 interceptions or he'll do both.
Probably do both. Yeah, knowing him, he'd probably do both.
He probably would do both, but the Saints are going to have a lot of things to figure out. This is a good week to get it figured out because Washington's not the strongest opponent in the world, but
no,
you've got to figure something out if you're the Saints here.
You really need to.
And then next game up, Philly goes to Carolina. This will be a very weird game. I honestly do not know who the better team is here. I would have probably said Philadelphia a few weeks ago, but the way they've played.
The way Philadelphia's played overall, and I know Carolina had that run in with Dallas, but Carolina overall is a more sound team.
Exactly.
Like Philly just doesn't play defense, but can play offense, or it's vice versa, or they both can somehow play great or play terrible.
Exactly.
If Philly just is too unpredictable in how they'll play.
Exactly. They're a very weird team. They're usually a weird team. But...
They usually are.
And then Tennessee goes to Jacksonville. And this is important for one reason. Tennessee just lost to the Jets. Jacksonville is a complete dumpster fire right now. Do the Jags bond together and make this a competitive game?
I think with everything that's going on in Jacksonville, they're going to be everyone's going to be too much focused on what's been happening off the field rather than actually focusing on the field.
And I think so. I think Tennessee will be playing with their ears pinned back on this one. You just got embarrassed last week.
I think Tennessee will have a wait after that rude awakening they got with the Jets by somehow letting them win. I think Tennessee's like, all right, let's play.
They're going to play to their full potential, I think, in this game.
They should.
But there will not be a lot of full potential in this game. New England goes to Houston. This is not going to be a good game. I'm just going to say that right now.
It's going to be one of the games that it's going to be hard to watch.
Yeah. This might be kind of funny to watch for a little bit to see.
Well, you could probably say that New England probably might come out swinging.
I think so.
But it's still one of those games. It's going to be hard to watch because the Texans.
Yeah, Houston's just a punching bag this year.
And also they refuse. Well, for good reason they're not playing Deshaun Watson.
Exactly.
For good reason.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like, oh man, if this whole baggage thing with Watson wasn't happening, Texans would be playing a lot better. But for granted, Watson doesn't want to play.
With all the allegations that happened to him.
There's a mutual understanding that he's not going to play regardless of whether he wanted to be in Houston or not.
Exactly.
And just the way he's acted toward the Texans and the way the stuff's happening off the field, it's like it's at this point. Thing is, you can't eat his contract. You have to let that play out.
Yes.
And no one's touching him. It's like no one though. I think I say no one, but there are teams that want him. But it's like, do you really want that baggage that comes with him?
Exactly. I wouldn't pull the trigger on him at this point.
It's like why are any teams considering doing it? I understand you're a desperate need for a quarterback, but it's like, are you willing to disregard those allegations?
Yeah,
it's like whether they're true or not is still being debated. But still, it's like you just don't want that. You don't need that. But whatever. Let's just move on.
Yeah. Next game here, Chicago heads to Las Vegas. Vegas, I think, is going to take this. Chicago without Montgomery and kind of having to just rely on whatever is left of their run game.
Yeah.
And Justin Fields.
Raiders are going to be more sound. Carr is going to have a good day. I think. Forget their Darren.
Something like that.
Yeah. So it starts with their tight end. He's been their best player so far for the Raiders. He's probably gonna have a good day. But Raiders are just gonna bounce back from that humiliating loss to the Chargers and will pound Chicago.
Yeah, I honestly do not see if Chicago had Montgomery, I could see them pulling this off somehow.
Yeah.
If they were able to just kind of control the clock, control the game, and do all of that, but with the way they are right now, I don't think that's going to happen.
No.
And speaking of clock control offenses, that's what I think Cleveland's going to have to do.
Cleveland will have to because Chargers will score quickly. Can score quickly.
Yeah, the Chargers have that ability in them. Cleveland's defense, I think, is improved, but it never hurts to try to control a game.
No, I will say from a fan perspective, that's a game I definitely want to watch because you get a good Browns team and you have a really good Chargers team.
Yeah, it'll be a big matchup. It's the 3:00 game, one of the 4 3:00s.
I believe it's going to be the Romo and Nance will do that one.
More than likely,
I figured you would because they're really good teams.
I would think so. And then at 3:25, the Giants and the Cowboys. An example in how are these two in the same division? I mean, every year I've always wondered since I was a little kid how the Cowboys are in the NFC East.
I've always, even me, I was like, but they're from Dallas is in Texas, but yet they have to
Dallas is
on
not
the East
East.
Coast. It's like, but obviously because of alignment issues, that's the only reason why they're even in the East is because everywhere else is actually, when you consider region wise, everyone else is actually where they should be. The issue is Dallas is the odd one out.
No, let's just put Tampa Bay in the East instead. It'll be fine. Nothing bad will happen.
You could probably for all those teams in the AFC South could literally be put. Probably two of them could be put in the East. Carolina could go to the East because
exactly
they're right there next. They're right there.
Yeah.
Well, as Dallas could be better off in the South, but then again, you lose a lot of the classic rivalries.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you can still have them play each other once in a while.
True, but the thing is, they can't play each other every year or so often.
They can find a way. We have an extra week for a reason now.
True, but
we could literally do a rivalry week in the NFL if we wanted to.
You probably could, but
have a Cowboys and Texans game.
We need to do something about CTE proceeds to add an extra week of football.
Yes.
But moving on to the next one.
And then the next one, the NFC West continues to impress as San Francisco heads to Arizona. So red hot Arizona, I think we'll get a very big win, but it's the NFC West, so Trey Lance could start and throw for 400 yards, and I'd just be like, okay.
It's like if Trey Lance balls out against Arizona, Jimmy G will probably have to consider getting traded because it's like Lance is just playing that. If he plays that good against Arizona, I would consider starting him.
Yeah,
but until then, I wouldn't consider it.
Exactly. Arizona's just such a red-hot team like we talked about earlier this year. It'll be very interesting to see how they play.
I'm really kind of riding high on Arizona.
I am too right now. I'm very impressed by what they're doing. But then we get to Sunday night. Buffalo heads to Kansas City.
I will say Buffalo is finally after the fluke loss. After that fluke loss to the Steelers, they pretty much have beaten up on teams that really aren't that great for the most part. If you look at their record, they're not. Teams they played haven't been that great. While Chiefs have been playing a little better competition, per se. But
it will
be interesting because you get two high-powered offenses going at each other, but then Bills' defense just being the Bills' defense.
Yeah, the Bills' defense versus the Chiefs' offense will be the real battle to watch here because
I expect, for me, as much as I hate it, Josh Allen will probably throw between 350 and 415 yards and probably get a few touchdowns. I mean, Josh has just played well.
Exactly.
So,
if I'm Kansas City, if I were in your shoes, I'd be a little bit scared about this game because Kansas City so far this year has gotten a few breaks to go their way in that they are able to still play their kind of backyard football type of style. Buffalo remembers last year not very fondly either. They're going to do everything in their ability to shut them down.
Yeah, the game's back in Arrowhead. So.
Yeah, just like the season never ended last year. Same thing happened to Cleveland. Oh, hey, we get to start the year in Arrowhead. It's the 5th quarter. And then the Monday night game, we get treated to something that really should not be on Monday night. The Colts at the Ravens. Why is this the Monday night game? Can we put Buffalo, Kansas City on Monday night
That'd have been
and
a
move
better.
San Francisco, Arizona to Sunday night if you
That's
had
just
to?
how the schedule worked out.
I know that's how that works.
But I mean, you wish you could flip it.
I know. I wish they allowed the cross or the flexing earlier on in the year, but they don't.
Yeah, but because you got to have a structure set together. You can't make adjustments.
Exactly, but it'll be another fun week in the NFL. It always is.
It usually is.
One of the Jets and Falcons has to win at 8:30 in the morning.
Yep.
That's kind of just the weirdest way to start the day. I enjoy the London games because more football the better, obviously, for me. But it'll be such an oddball game. And I love those types of games. Every time I feel like the NFL's had a game in London, something weird has happened in all of them. And I think this will be no exception this week.
And they've been doing very well for the most
They
part.
have.
Like, attendance at the games have been very good. People in the UK have actually been very open to having football there. Well, American football.
They get to have real football. The way it was meant to be played.
The way God intended.
Yes.
All right. But I think that probably settles everything for the NFL.
Exactly. That recaps and previews in the NFL.
And on to college football.
And now on to the chaos sport, college football.
Chaos.
Where everything that could go wrong usually can. Sometimes it doesn't. That's what you call a lucky day for your team.
Yeah.
And I mean, it got started on Thursday night. The chaos started early this week.
Mm-hmm.
Virginia goes to Miami and pulls out a win. Keep in mind, no De'Aaron King for Miami in this game, playing their backup quarterback. And Miami has a great drive. They're driving down the field, down 2, field goal, easy, 38-yarder. All you got to do is knock this. You're right down the middle.
It's practical. It's a chip. It's one of the easiest kicks ever. If you get one right down the middle, it's like how do you mess this kick up?
And it sails and dings off the upright, and Virginia wins.
And many of us are kind of happy that Miami still is yet to come.
Miami is 2-3 now. They have still not looked good at all.
None of their games they've played, even the ones they've won, haven't looked good.
And then jumping to Friday, the first day of October, you'd think you get a little chaos to start October. It is the spooky month after all, with Halloween. And instead we got Iowa destroying Maryland 51-14.
I know when we were previewing this one, we thought, hey, Maryland might actually give Iowa some problems because, hey, they've been doing well on offense. And then, no.
Well, Maryland did well on offense at turning the ball over. They had 7 total turnovers in this game.
Wasn't it like 5 interceptions?
I believe so.
And it was like Iowa actually offensively looked great.
They did.
And defense just dominated.
This is Iowa's game, though. If you let them rely on their defense and field position the entire game, and you let them beat you up the field like that, they'll absolutely do it.
Mm-hmm.
They will just overload you and shut you down. That is exactly what they love to do.
Mm-hmm.
And BYU playing Utah State, rivalry game. Anytime you get a big rivalry, you're going to see some crazy things happen.
Mm-hmm.
BYU gets a 34-20 win. Crazy things happen.
Yeah.
But it did not happen this week to BYU.
Nope. So, luckily, BYU avoided. Like, Utah State's usually kind of like when BYU actually seems like they're doing well. Utah State seems to be like sometimes to be their trap game.
Yeah, usually it's the trap game before the game you expect them to have a struggle with.
But so far, BYU has looked great, and they still continue to play well.
Yes, and keep in mind, this is with their quarterbacks changing around. I think they've played 3 different quarterbacks so far this year.
Seriously?
Yeah, actually, it was kind of funny because I was watching one of their games, and I see this kid with Romney on the back of his jersey at quarterback. I was like, I wonder. But I believe BYU's had 3 different quarterbacks they've used at some point in the year.
That's actually news to me. I didn't think they were even
switching quarterbacks. That's the thing. When it gets hidden at 9 o'clock on CBS Sports, you're not going to know.
True, but still, it's
I'll bring that up again later for a very specific point because there's a crazy upset that no one saw because it was 1 a.m. on CBS Sports, and we'll get to that later on. But we want to start with we'll start with the number one team in the country doing what the number one team in the country should do. Lane Kiffin let everyone know to get your popcorn ready because they're going to put on a show. And he was right. They put on a pretty good clinic of how to let Alabama walk down the field in about 5 minutes.
Exactly.
And Alabama does exactly what you would expect them to do, 42-21. I was disappointed. I wanted first to 63.
Yeah, I think many of us, I think, were thinking that because the way Ole Miss played against most of their opponents, but then you kind of realize, oh, wait, they don't really have much of a defense.
And I think Alabama was still mad that they gave up 21.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how they adjust.
When they were just as dominant as they were, the fact that they kind of let the defense kind of let off the throttle a tiny bit, it's like you should have kept them at least under either at 10 or just 7.
And then if you want defense, the team for you is Georgia. Georgia is just monsters on defense. This is one of the most, not even that they're just good at tackling. They're one of the most athletic, fast. They don't just swarm to the ball. They teleport to the ball.
Yeah.
By the time you snap it, they're there.
Yeah.
It's insane to see how fast they are.
Just how they just easily dominated Arkansas. I mean, obviously, they were hyping the game up because Arkansas was seen to be like, hey, we're back. We're actually a good football team. And Georgia reminded them, like, no, you're not.
Well, I think this just shows it really is Alabama, Georgia, and then everybody else this year.
So far is what
so far, the national championship game will be December in Atlanta when Alabama and Georgia. You might as well just end the season with that game.
It's like the thing is, it doesn't matter who. Depending on how that game goes, when those two finally meet each other, if hopefully Georgia doesn't have a late season collapse, which with the next.
Well, we'll talk about late season. We'll talk about what happens with them this week. They get a friendly visit from their old pal Auburn.
But let me continue my thought.
Yeah.
It's like
no.
As long as but
I had to do it. It was too easy.
I know. But if Georgia with these next few weeks runs through that, they have probably literally a golden opportunity to go undefeated.
Oh yeah.
They just have to not mess up the next few weeks. But otherwise, I mean, they're going to be favored in every game from here on out. But still, it's like, as long as everything goes their way and hopefully their starting quarterback is back, they should have a fine time.
And I want to keep in mind, Georgia won this game with 72 passing yards.
They didn't even attempt to throw the football.
With their backup quarterback in, they still won 37-0 and completely dominated from start to finish.
I bet the one highlight that stood out to me to that Georgia-Arkansas game, one guy blocked like 3 different players.
Yes.
He took one guy and 2 other guys got caught up in the block and were
Georgia's red zone packages are a treat to watch. If you've never seen them run some of their red zone packages when they get inside like the 3 this year, they will bring in their defensive linemen as tackles or as tight ends and have them block. And when you see a 6'7" guy out there blocking 3 guys at once, it truly is amazing to watch.
Yeah, most definitely it is.
And then,
it's like Kirby Smart this is easily, I think, his best team.
I think
ever.
so.
Like so far from what we've seen, this is by far the most dominant Georgia team I've seen in years.
This is, I mean, the 2017 Georgia team I thought that would be the best team he'd have, and then they kind of had the rocky road for a little bit. But now they look better than ever.
Well, the difference is with that, while he had a good defense, they weren't as good as they were this year. They weren't good as they're, and they had a really good offense.
They did
in 2017. This one they've been good, but they haven't really shown where they could be at. But good Lord, they don't need to when their defense just is obliterating everybody.
Exactly. And that's the thing is we haven't seen Georgia's offense have to really do anything. They just have to get really 15. Like, if they just get 20 points, they've won. That's all they have to do.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's where they are in the year. But it'll be very interesting to see how they progress throughout the year. Another team that'll be interested to see how they bounce back is Oregon, going to Stanford.
the greatest upset of the week.
Yeah, I mean, this was the upset of the week. Oregon comes all the way back, takes a 24-17 lead, and then they commit just some of the most costly penalties you could make at the worst times.
Yep.
You get a targeting penalty, which ejects Thibodeau from the game. So you're now without your best defender for the rest of this final drive and the first half of this upcoming game this week. And so, what do you do after that? Oh, well, you just nearly tackle a receiver and give him another free 15 on a pass interference. And so, you've given Stanford 30 free yards now. And so, the Cardinal were able to just kind of roll down the field.
Pretty much did.
And then they score on they go for the score, 4th and goal, game on the line. Time expires and it's incomplete, except for the fact there was a defensive holding penalty on Oregon, allowing one on-time down. They throw a fade route, which I'm not a fan of fade routes to end the game, but Stanford pulled it off. All props to them. They did the one thing I don't like, and they do it well.
Well, here's the it's like, well, to me it's like one of the best plays because it's like it shows how good can the defense stop that.
Exactly. And I mean, that's also why I'm not an offensive coordinator, but
yeah, but
Stanford ties the game. They go to overtime. They win in overtime. You get a field storming, which is always wonderful to see.
I was actually shocked that any of those that were rooting for Stanford actually stormed the field.
I'm surprised they weren't doing homework on the field after the game.
Probably were given less assignments to do, and they finished it up pretty quickly.
Maybe. I'm surprised they didn't have a PowerPoint presentation after the game on the scoreboard or something. But big win for Stanford. Tanner McKee continues to impress me. Stanford, they might just mess around and win the Pac-12 North this year now.
I wouldn't
They
doubt
have
that.
the quality win you need to have. Who's going to stop you? Washington? No. Washington State? Probably not. Oregon State? The jury's still out on them.
It's kind of up in the air.
Cal? Probably not.
Probably not.
I mean, you've beaten the two name brands in the Pac-12. You've beaten Oregon and you've beaten USC.
Yep.
Now, yes, you lost to Arizona, or not Arizona State. They play Arizona State this week. You lost to UCLA, but UCLA's still a solid team.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they haven't necessarily lost to any bad teams.
No, they haven't.
I mean, K-State is pretty good. From
K-State's one of those sneaky teams that you always forget about until you play them.
Yep, but they're still good.
Yes.
And then you lost to a good UCLA team, and you destroy USC. You obviously get your quality win against Oregon. They've played well.
They have.
That's all you can really say about them. I mean, they've been playing well.
And then number 4, Penn State. Big home game against Indiana, team that beat you last year. And they were able to just decimate them. The score doesn't show it as it's only 24-0, but Penn State just dominated this entire game.
I'm mad that box score didn't have 7s across the board for Penn State.
I know. They had 7, 7, 7, 3.
And I was like, you disappoint me.
But yeah, the Nittany Lions looked good as they have been. Their defense has been very solid the entire year. It was what you expected Penn State to do.
Yeah.
Especially with Indiana not looking as good as they were last year.
No, I think it's just one of those years that it seems like it was a bit fluky that Indiana played as good as they did last year. Everyone else just didn't play well. I mean, it kind of helps when Penn State just drops off the face of the earth during the COVID year. Literally everyone in your division was just bad except for Ohio State.
Yeah, it was one of those. Michigan State was rebuilding. Penn State was missing in action. Michigan was being Michigan. That was really just like, okay, someone's got to be second place behind Ohio State.
I mean, they should. And of course, if the rules stayed the same consistently through the whole year, Indiana would have went to the Big Ten
they would have
title,
played Northwestern.
and who knows how that game would have turned out.
Exactly.
But obviously, they did whatever they could to keep Ohio State in it. And it's like, bruh. But what can you really say? All besides Indiana kind of just fell off a bit. Has fallen off.
Yeah.
Not in past tense like currently.
Yeah. They have fallen apart at this point.
I think they need to kind of regroup. Like, I would still keep the staff that you have, but kind of figure out, okay, what are we doing wrong here so we can get ready for next season. I mean, obviously, you still have to finish out the rest of this year. Hopefully, you can become bowl eligible, but you still got to figure some things out.
Exactly.
Because I think Penix is not your quarterback. Was not your guy.
No, he just had that kind of one weird year where he played well, and now he's regressed back to where he was.
Yeah.
And then next game we got up here, Oklahoma goes to Kansas State, gets a win. It's been a while since I've said that.
I not to kind of rain on your parade with OU, but that defense was like they struggled most of that good portion of that game. Like they gave up a lot of yards.
I mean,
especially running, just regards to running the football. I mean, K-State. If K-State doesn't get in their own way, that game turns out entirely differently. OU doesn't look like they could win as smoothly. Now, for granted, yes, late in that game, K-State was like, all right, let's go, almost making that game within 6. But still, it's like if K-State doesn't just kind of lay an egg early in the game, that game is probably a lot way closer the entire game instead of it being, OU jumped out way ahead.
Well, see, I had the exact opposite take. I had the takeaway of if OU catches 2 interceptions that were thrown right to him.
Okay, now for granted, yes, but
you don't commit the dumbest unsportsmanlike conduct on a field goal, which allowed that kickoff return to happen. You win 37 to what? 10, 14, and you completely shut K-State down.
It'd still be over 20 points for K-State.
Well, that kickoff return's negated, so that'd be 24, and those 2 picks.
I'm not talking about the ones that you negate. I think K-State still finds a way to get those 20 points. They had the onside kicks.
Yeah, but they failed every time.
Yeah. And I also watched this game. You're making it sound like I didn't really watch it as much. But it's like I saw from what way OU played defensively. They were giving up a lot of yards when K-State just ran the football. Like that, they struggled.
Yes, and
passing-wise, yes, they did better in the secondary, but overall, that defense did not look as great as they did before.
Exactly, and that's a problem.
Now, that offense, they played way better.
Offense improved.
This is where the opposite happened. The offense showed up, the defense kind of was there, and then eventually played better for good portions of the game, but then kind of relapsed in every now and then.
Yeah, and I think Alex Grinch really did summarize it up the best. We believe in practice, but I guess some of our guys don't. I think that's the best
That's
quote.
A perfect representation of what way they played.
Yeah, I mean, I did not understand the whole we're going to let Deuce Vaughn just catch the ball as a receiver and just let him run for 20 yards. I did not understand that strategy. I know Alex Grinch did not scheme it up like that because he was very adamant that he was not happy about that, and he did not understand why that kept happening. But not to get too ahead of myself, but if OU does that again on defense, this Texas game this week is going to be interesting. I'll say that. But another big matchup we had, Cincinnati and Notre Dame. What can be said about Cincy at this point? They look fun. They're having fun. This is a very entertaining team to watch.
Now you have all the confidence in the world if you're Cincy, but don't let it get to your head.
Yeah, I would say, but UCF still exists. You still got to play that.
And for all we know, they'll just drop a random game out of nowhere to a team they should have killed.
Yeah, that's how the American usually works. If you remember a few years ago when Houston was really good, they beat Oklahoma. They had all momentum, and they fell apart against like Navy or something like that. And it was just one of those like, okay, I guess that happened.
Yep.
I don't know why.
Just one. I don't really know what to say about that. It's one that just didn't really show up to play.
And then
that's all I can really say.
The other pick for upset of the day, Kentucky, for the first time since the 80s, beats Florida at home, and the Gators were 2 points away from beating Alabama. Kentucky beat Florida by 7. Does that mean Kentucky would beat Alabama by 5? No. But am I going to act like it is anyway? Yes.
I mean, we want it to happen, but is it going to happen? No.
I mean, Kentucky we'll see how good Kentucky truly is. They get Georgia in a few weeks.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean that's your measuring stick pretty much this year. You get sacrificed to either Alabama or Georgia if you think you're a good team in the SEC.
Pretty much.
And then Ohio State takes on Rutgers. This was a blowout. Nothing to see here.
Ohio State just came out swinging.
Yeah,
they
like
never
52 to
did not let it off the throttle.
Yeah, 52 to 13. Ouch.
Yeah, mega ouch.
And then speaking of ouch, Wisconsin just they don't have an offense. They really don't.
And
Michigan rolls them 38-17. They were booing their offense. It was
Mertz
bad.
went out with a chest injury.
Yeah, Mertz got injured, and Wisconsin did not look good at all.
No, that game was hard to watch.
It really was. The fact that this was the big noon game was kind of like, why? I understand we all thought Wisconsin would be good at the beginning of the year, but
it's the way things have turned out for them, especially after just getting blown out by Notre Dame. For the most part, I mean, at the very end they got killed, but
yeah,
Michigan looked very confident through the whole game and just was like, "Hey, we're here."
Yeah,
like they didn't really feel like Michigan had to do really anything to win that game. They could have just existed and they still would have won by like 13.
Yeah.
Instead, they win by 21.
And then Mississippi State goes into College Station and beats Texas A&M 26-22.
How about them Aggies?
Yeah, I was told A&M was a real threat this year to Alabama.
Exactly.
This is why you don't ever listen to what comes out of College Station until they actually do it. And they can still beat Alabama. It would just take Alabama going to the wrong venue and A&M getting to declare victory by forfeit, but Texas A&M has not looked good. I understand some of that's on your starting quarterback getting injured, but at the same time,
I mean,
what is this?
Well, the thing is, you still have everyone else that's still playing. That's been starting since the beginning. You bring and your backup quarterback is leagues down from where their starter is. There's a problem. That means you didn't do a good job making sure you had a good backup plan in case your best quarterback went down.
Exactly.
And
Calzada.
And the whole team has not responded.
Exactly. Calzada's just not that guy for the A&M. And I was told, A&M's defense about how great their defense was supposed to be. Where? You gave up 408. Now, granted, it's a Mike Leach team, but you gave up 408 yards to Will Rogers. How did you do that?
Exactly.
You just let him run the same play like 8 different times. And then kind of jumping a bit, the one upset that no one saw coming, I didn't see it coming. I don't even think CBS saw it coming, which is why this was a 10 o'clock at night game. Hawaii upsets Fresno State 27-24.
Yeah, I didn't like many other people. I didn't watch that game.
What happened was Fresno State continued to throw the ball despite up 14 with like 7 minutes left.
Okay, why would you?
They went for it on 4th and 5 at the 50.
They got in their own way.
They got in their own way. Hawaii scores 17 points in the final 7 minutes, or in the fourth quarter. Not in the final 7 minutes, but in the fourth quarter, they had a walk-off field goal. Or they didn't hit a walk-off field goal. They hit a field goal with a minute left, and Fresno State probably turned the ball over right back to it.
Probably.
But yeah, it was a very weird game, and a reminder that the Mountain West is a crazy conference.
Yep. That's just a frustrating one because Fresno State shouldn't have lost to Hawaii.
No.
Instead, they did.
Yep. And then Baylor comes up to Stillwater, taking on Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's defense continued to do what their defense has done so far this season.
Pretty much manhandling almost every team they've played so far.
Yeah, I mean,
defensively, they've pretty much have dominated. They pretty much have, for the most part, dominating, especially second half. They've almost hardly anyone, besides obviously the Missouri State game.
Besides the weirdest game I've ever seen.
Besides that weird game, it was like they pretty much have kept everyone else from really doing anything. The issue for Oklahoma State, their offense can't get out of their own way.
That's true. Spencer Sanders continuing to turn the ball over and really prevent them from doing anything.
It's like, the thing is, it's like most of that game, Sanders played pretty well. Then he had those few drives where, obviously, the interception. 2 of them were directly his fault. The other one was just a good job by the defense, knocking the ball out of receivers' hands and just knocking it in the air. And they obviously picked it off. But those first 2, good Lord, I wanted to punch my TV.
But I mean, Baylor, I did not understand. The run game was not working. I do not understand why they continue to try to force the run game at certain points, where it's just like you're not getting anything. Just throw the ball.
Well, even throwing the ball in the first half, they couldn't do anything.
No, that second half they had a little bit more and were able to open it up a little bit.
They were able to open up a tiny bit, but they still couldn't really do anything because they couldn't score. They couldn't. Every time they got within like the 30-yard line of Oklahoma State, they got forced back about 10, 15 yards because the OSU defense makes a good play. I mean, one of our players got I think got freshman player of the week or whatever.
Yeah,
kid out of Santa Fe.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Oklahoma State's defense. We already know how good it is. They'll get Texas in a few weeks. They'll have a bye week, and we'll get to see a really big challenge for Oklahoma State. And then Arizona State goes to the Rose Bowl and just destroys UCLA, 42-23. I don't understand the Pac-12. I never will understand the Pac-12.
I don't think not even the Pac-12 understands the Pac-12.
No, not even the Pac-12 will understand them on their own selves. But this was a pretty entertaining game to watch, despite it being a blowout.
Remember 2 weeks ago we were riding high on UCLA, and all of a sudden, look how that's turned out.
Yeah, remember when we said at the beginning of the year we had no clue why Arizona State was in the top 25? And then we were like, oh, UCLA, I think, is actually a good team. Okay, never mind. Fresno's just a really good team.
Yep.
Okay, maybe they were just all equally bad because Oregon has now lost, Fresno has lost, UCLA has lost, and BYU beat Arizona State. And Stanford gets Arizona State this week. So I don't know what the Pac-12 is, and at this point, I'm not even going to ask.
Yeah, I think you'd save yourself a lot of headaches.
And
doing that.
Speaking of headaches, LSU fans had a lot of headaches. Bo Nix, this man broke like 17 tackles, it felt like. Bo Nix was untouchable in the sense that LSU players refused to touch him. And when they did, he just kind of slipped through them. Auburn gets a 24-19 win over LSU.
I think early in the game, he had an insane touchdown throw, or at least a good first down.
Oh, yeah. He had a play where he broke 3 tackles in the backfield and then just finds a receiver, chunks it downfield, 40 yards, and away Auburn goes.
That's got to be one of the best performances by a quarterback.
Exactly.
So far.
And Auburn's first win in Death Valley since, I believe, the 90s, I want to say.
Wow.
Auburn usually does not win there. Well, think about it. Usually every time Auburn goes there, they run into a very good LSU team.
That's true. It's usually the year where they're not. It's the year where they have to go. I'm mixed up. Usually good where Auburn's good is when LSU has to go to Auburn.
Yeah,
but it's usually vice versa.
Yes, it's one of those kind of. Auburn's just such a wild card of a team. They don't make any sense.
They really don't.
And the final ranked game I want to touch on, Clemson once again wins somehow. They get a 19-13 win over Boston College. Boston College loses the game because they snapped the ball wrong. They had a very good drive going. They were, I believe, in the red zone or very close to it.
Yeah.
And they just had one bad snap. Clemson jumps on it, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
Clemson still does not have a good offense.
No.
I just think that's just how it is going to be for them this year.
Apparently.
And so I really do not know why Clemson was even in the top 25 still, and they finally were taken out this week.
Thank goodness. I mean, they're still they're the first one out still. I mean, everyone else is kind of there. I mean, the other teams that are getting votes are A&M, Oregon State. But it's like, why is A&M getting votes?
Because they play Alabama this week. And then Alabama will obliterate them. Not to spoil my pick or anything, but Alabama will obliterate it.
We'll just get it out of the way for that one. We know Alabama's going to win.
Yeah. The fact that's the CBS primetime game is ridiculous this year.
That should not be the...
This is why you do not make the selection 2 weeks in advance.
Yep. I mean...
But one final game I want to touch on unranked. Texas getting a 32-27 win over TCU. TCU is to Texas about like what K-State is to Oklahoma. Where it's just, why can we not beat this team, or why do they play us very close every year? I don't understand. But Texas was finally able to beat them. Big win for Texas. They're 4-1 coming into Red River.
Yep, and they were made ranked because for obvious reasons.
Yes,
you gotta make this one more interesting.
You got to make it more interesting. Plus, I mean, Texas's only losses to Arkansas. We don't know how good Texas actually is. We'll find out this week.
Yeah. We'll find out.
Yeah. And I mean, that's probably a good place to start this here as we now roll into the current week of predictions for college football. I'm not going to do any of the Thursday night games tonight because do we really want to pick Houston to Tulane? I don't think
Well,
so.
those games have already
Yeah,
gotten
also, they started 50 minutes ago.
And I can just give you an update right now. Houston is up 14-0 on Tulane with about just under 13 minutes left in the second quarter. And Coastal Carolina is up on Arkansas State 10-0, about just under 11 into the second quarter.
Okay, so about how I expected those to go.
Yeah, they're pretty much just how you expect them.
And then Friday night game. So tomorrow night, Temple comes to Cincinnati. Very big win last week for the Bearcats.
Mm-hmm.
You got to keep the momentum going. You cannot fall asleep now.
You can't. If you do, it's game over.
Exactly. I think Cincinnati will win this one.
They should.
I mean, they should. You can say that about every Cincinnati game for the rest of this year. They should win now.
Well,
but they're
they
in conference play.
besides UCF and SMU. SMU is currently ranked.
Yes.
And SMU has been playing, for the most part of the season, playing very well.
Yeah.
So that will be the one game to keep an eye on, depending on where both those teams will be at when they play each other. But once again, if you're Cincinnati, just 1 week at a time.
Yeah.
Do not worry about what's at the end of the road. Worry about what's currently in front of you.
And then the other big Friday night game, Stanford goes to Tempe to take on Arizona State. The Pac-12 just can't get enough of weird games, so Friday night at 9:30 Central, why not?
That's so late.
That is very late. So I hope you enjoy technically Saturday morning football.
I would really like to watch that, but obviously we got homecoming.
Yeah, so
Saturday, so I'll have to go to bed early.
Yeah, homecoming with Northwestern in town. That'll be at 4 o'clock on Saturday. So big game there. Another big game involving a team from Oklahoma. Oklahoma, Texas. Red River rivalry. 11 a.m. The Cotton Bowl, the State Fair, the best atmosphere in college football, in my opinion. It's just such a grand time. Anytime you go to this game, win or lose, you always have a fun time. If you lose, kind of sucks a bit. But if you win, it's one of the most energetic things walking out of that place, knowing you get to see everyone on the rival fan base being depressed. And then you get to go eat. My personal favorite was the deep fried Oreos. So go around there, get a turkey leg, get a funnel cake, get whatever you want. They've got deep fried kolaches this year. I saw was a thing that they added that was new, called deep fried I-35.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so many amazing things that happen at the State Fair, and OU Texas tops it all off.
Yeah.
And I mean, the game itself, I haven't even gotten to the game itself yet. The game itself is going to be great. Oklahoma and Texas, I mean, there are so many things to say about both these programs, especially this year. There are a lot of unknowns. It's week 6, and we still really don't know a whole lot about these teams. They change so much from week to week.
Yeah, we don't know. Like, this game will kind of be like, well, do these two teams play how they have been the last few years, where they don't play their best game? They kind of just, it's a slugfest, or does one team or do both teams come out flying, or is it a one-sided massacre?
I think Oklahoma both teams can easily win this game. This is a game where you throw records out the window. OU could be number 1 and 5-0, and Texas could be 0-5, and I'd still be scared for my life that Texas would win this game.
It's pretty much just how that rivalry goes.
That's how this is. This is like, this game exists in its own little vacuum in time and space where nothing around it matters. But I mean, if you're Oklahoma, you got Bijan Robinson. It'll be very hard to stop him. Bijan Robinson, just such a good running back for Texas this year.
Ran all over TCU like it was nothing. Like it seemed like he was averaging like 6 yards.
And Texas does a lot of what OU is weak to on defense this year. Bijan will be a wide receiver several times. They do a lot of motion. Oklahoma will have to find a way to stop that. I did hear a rumor today that Marcus Major might be back at running back for Oklahoma. If you can get some depth there and be able to run some of those fun 2-back sets, have your offensive line continue to step up like it did in the Kansas State game, Oklahoma has a good chance. But if you're Texas, you've got to pick apart that Oklahoma secondary. Casey Thompson has to step up in this game, and I think he will be overwhelmed with emotion. He will play his heart out no matter what happens in this game. But if you're Oklahoma, you want Casey Thompson to be the guy that beats you. And he's capable of doing it.
Yep.
He has all the talent, and he's a dual threat. TCU had to learn that the hard way last week. They went all in on stopping Bijan Robinson. Casey Thompson makes one read, bolts it for 40 yards down the field.
Mm-hmm.
If you're Oklahoma, you can't let that happen.
Nope. But it's going to be interesting to see where both teams will be at.
Exactly.
And we'll probably come back to that pick later.
Exactly. We'll come back to that one later. That'll be kind of the last one we end with a picking with. But kind of some of these other games I want to get to just because they're going to be so weird. I mean, this is a lot of rivalry games this week is what I noticed.
Yep.
I mean, there are so many fun matchups, even games that aren't really involving ranked teams. There'll be some good ones. TCU Texas Tech one I kind of want to get out of the way on the subject of the Big 12. That's always a fun game to watch.
It usually is.
It's one of those games where I don't know what's going to happen. I don't trust either of those two teams, so it's going to be a fun game. Night game in Lubbock. You never know what's going to happen there.
Exactly.
But one of the big ones I want to get to is actually the Saturday night game. There are two specific games I want to build up here. I think you'll understand why. But one game I want to start with, Saturday night, Michigan comes to Nebraska. Michigan's now the number 9 team in the country. They come to Lincoln, and Nebraska will be ready for this one.
Oh man, I'm still not ready for Michigan to be a top 10 team.
Michigan's only a 3.5-point favorite, and I kind of understand that. Nebraska's
playing ever since that loss to Illinois, they've overall have played a lot better.
They really have. I mean, they're coming off a 56-7 just demolition of Northwestern. That I don't think a lot of people. We knew Northwestern wasn't that good this year.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone expected that.
No. I wasn't expecting that at all.
Exactly. But I think this will be a very fun game. I mean, anytime Nebraska gets to host the Saturday night game, it usually ends bad for them.
Yeah. But
it's always a fun environment in Lincoln.
Nebraska, I think, will come out and play their butts off like they have been the last few weeks. They'll give Michigan some problems.
Exactly.
But that's not giving away my pick because...
Yeah, we'll kind of preview all of them and then give our picks at the end.
We'll preview them all.
And then next one I want to get up to is Maryland. You somehow got destroyed. You turned the ball over 7 times against Iowa. You now have to go play Ohio State in the shoe, which is never an easy place to play at.
It's never an easy place to play at.
Ohio State is currently a 21-point favorite in this game, as you'd expect. An over-under of 71, so they're expecting a lot of points in this one. And I think we'll get it. Ohio State's looked a whole lot better since that Oregon loss. They had some time to fix things.
Yeah.
The Tulsa game kind of scared them straight, really, I think, is how that ended up working.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how both these teams respond.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
And then Arkansas and Ole Miss. This is still a top 20 matchup.
Still top 20.
And I really don't know what to say about this one. No matter who you are in this game, you're coming off getting absolutely beaten down by one of the 2 best teams in the country.
They got beaten by 2 and 1 respectively.
Yeah, they got just absolutely hammered. Ole Miss is the 5.5-point favorite in this one.
Well, it's like with Ole Miss, Alabama's defense, I don't think is where Georgia's defense is overall. Georgia's seems like they went all in on their defense, while obviously Alabama has kind of not been as great as they've been before on defense. But that's still saying Lane Kiffin could still manage to put 21 on. Arkansas couldn't put any points on there.
Yes.
Now it's basically going to come down to, is this going to be a shootout, or does Lane Kiffin offense do what they normally been doing and go in there and beat Arkansas? Well, win at home against Arkansas. But does Arkansas rebound and play like they played before?
Exactly.
It's just a huge. Well, there's all kinds of scenarios how that game could easily play out. It's because these two teams are just weird. I mean, now for granted, yeah, people are mainly more in favor of Ole Miss because they can still score, and Arkansas couldn't do anything. Don't count Arkansas out. Like
Exactly.
you should. It's still a top 20 matchup, and Ole Miss and Arkansas. This will be a good game to keep an eye on.
It really will. I mean, I hate that it's an 11 a.m. game the same time as OU Texas because it's like I wanted to watch this game too. I wanted to keep a better eye on this one because I was excited when I saw, okay, this is a game this week. This will be fun. Well, I think the main key if you're Arkansas here is you have to keep this a physical, lower scoring matchup. That's Arkansas's wheelhouse right there. They love playing these kind of more gritty defensive games. I mean, we saw them do it against Texas A&M.
Yep.
We saw them shut Texas down for most of the game. That's how they like to play. Ole Miss is the exact opposite. They like to throw it out. They like to be high flying and go for 60 every time they can.
Yep.
I mean, obviously you want to score 60, but Ole Miss really likes it.
Yeah. Fully agree with that one.
And then chaos usually strikes during this game, but I don't think
the Deep South's oldest rivalry.
Yep. Georgia comes to Jordan-Hare. It's not a night game this time, so you don't have to be worried about that if you're Georgia, but it is a 2:30 CBS. Georgia is a 15.5-point favorite in this one. People really love the Dogs. I mean there's
for absolutely good reasons.
Exactly. You have a defense that refuses to let people score unless you're South Carolina somehow, but South Carolina was able to get a touchdown on them. It's just such a weird stat, but
I mean it's a reasonable stat. It's like how has no one else been able to really do anything, but yet
I mean this is a Georgia defense that has allowed a whopping 4 points per game. 4.
That's way better than what Alabama's been able to do.
Exactly.
I think that just shows a bit of a gap.
Yes, and
gap in regards to just how good Georgia has just been playing.
And then Auburn is one of those weird teams. You played Penn State very close up there. I mean that more every week that looks like a better quality loss than when you played them.
Yeah.
And Bo Nix coming off arguably one of his better games of his career against LSU at home. It will be very weird to see how this one plays out. This is usually one of those games other years you think of like, maybe upset Auburn here, but this year with how good Georgia's defense is, though,
you never know. That's why you play the game.
Exactly.
But once again, it's like people are expecting Georgia to do what they've been doing, but Auburn could probably might actually be able to score on them. It just depends on how it's been. The main thing you want to look at is the Auburn offense versus the Georgia defense. That's the key matchup.
Yes, that's the big matchup.
Because obviously you're not as because the defense for Auburn and the offense for Georgia kind of lag behind each of the opposite group for them. But who knows? Really, just like it's one of those where it's like things can happen. Auburn could get the upset, or Georgia could dominate them.
Exactly.
I'll save what I actually think for later.
Yeah. Then Boise State heads to undefeated BYU. Big rivalry out here for these two. Most people don't think of it as a rivalry because most people don't live in either of these states, to be completely honest. But this is a Boise team that has had a lot of ups and downs this year. They had the loss to UCF. They let that one slip away. They had the loss to Oklahoma State where they couldn't do anything in the second half.
They couldn't really do hardly much of anything.
Yeah, and then the Nevada game where the Wolfpack were able to run all over them for 41 points.
Yeah.
But BYU, it's been smooth sailing so far, beating Utah, beating Arizona State. You had the weird close calls with South Florida and Utah State, but the Cougars are still looking like a very fun team, a very good team.
Mm-hmm.
Having to rely on their defense to win games, which I'm still not used to saying for BYU.
Hey, if it works, it works for you.
Exactly. If it works, it works. BYU, the 6-point favorites here. a weird 2:30 game. You don't see many 2:30 games with BYU and Boise State.
That's a very weird time.
Yeah, so it'll be, I believe, it'd be 1:30 Mountain Time and 12:30 Pacific. So, yeah, very odd start time for those guys out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then another one to keep an eye on, just because America's soon-to-be favorite underdog if they keep winning, Wake Forest. They're number 19 in the country. They're going to Syracuse. Syracuse just got beat by Florida State. That happened, folks. Florida State won a game, and it was beating Syracuse on a field goal to win it. So I really want to see in the Carrier Dome how Syracuse responds. And if you're Wake, you survived Louisville last week, 37-34.
Yep.
You have a very big task this week. You're 6-point favorite, but anything can happen once you get up there.
I mean, it's just weird seeing Wake Forest actually being a top 25 team. Now, yes, they're undefeated, which is the main reason why where they are, but you beat Louisville, who is a good football team for the most part, and you've done everything you can to get where you're at. Now, obviously, Syracuse, you lost to a bad Florida State team, and now you got to respond and actually get a quality win. Now, and the way Wake Forest has played so far, Wake Forest has played really good offensively, and defense has done enough to keep them winning games. Syracuse kind of hit and miss here and there.
Yeah.
For the most part. I mean, they're not what's their record?
Syracuse is actually 3-2 this year.
Okay, so
they've had some wins.
They have some wins, and they've obviously two teams that lost to. But it's like they're kind of hit and miss. Syracuse is just kind of like it's just you really just don't really see them. They're kind of like with what I always thought of Wake Forest, who really cares about them.
Yeah, but I mean, Syracuse has not really played anyone of importance this year. I mean, they played Ohio, Albany. They did have a big win over Liberty. Liberty was a good team last year, but then the losses to Rutgers and Florida State just oof.
Yeah.
Now, granted, Rutgers is still a decent team, but the Florida State loss is just like, man.
The Florida State one hurts more.
Exactly, but it'll be a very intriguing game. Then the next one I want to get to, Notre Dame comes down to Lane Stadium to take on the Hokies. Virginia Tech's already beaten one top 15 team this year at home in North Carolina, who's no longer in the top 25.
Yeah.
But you get Notre Dame. I have no idea who's going to start for Notre Dame. I still don't know. They said they were going to announce someone, and whoever that is, they're sticking with them. Vegas does not even know. They've called this one a pick'em. They have zero clue who's going to win.
All those Enter Sandman will be going off at Virginia Tech.
Yeah, so. Enter Sandman will be going off. Big time night game, 6:30 kickoff. They will be very excited for this one. I mean, you should be.
You should be. I mean, you're playing Notre Dame, who's a top 15 team, a top 20 team.
Yeah.
About messed that up there. And then Virginia Tech, they can play pretty decent, pretty good. Just the issue, they're not as great as some people thought they were when they lost to West Virginia. So, who really knows?
Yeah, it'll be a good test for Virginia Tech. It always is when you get a big name team like this to come in.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're Notre Dame, you got to find a way to rebound. You got beat by Cincinnati. You got to find absolutely any way you can to get back on the right track.
Yep.
And then LSU, coming off a very heartbreaking loss to Auburn, has to play a Kentucky team that is just on fire right now.
Yeah.
Kentucky, I believe, sold out this game already. A 3-point favorite. It'll be a very wild crowd in Lexington for this one. 6:30 kickoff. It's just so weird seeing that number 16 by Kentucky's name.
You're so used to them just not being a competitive football team at all. In fact, the thing is, they've done this I think within this.
They did it a few years ago.
Last decade, I think at least twice for 2 seasons were actually a top 20 team. And then I know a few years ago they seemed to be doing really well, and then they kind of ran into Florida, and then kind of.
They ran into Florida and Georgia.
Yeah, and they just kind of weren't able to really do much
Yeah.
after
But
that.
this year they already took care of Florida, so
Now-
and South Carolina, so that's two of the teams that usually give them problems in the SEC East already down.
Yep.
And if you're LSU, you still have yet to win a big game. I
Yeah.
mean, McNeese State and Central Michigan aren't the most interesting ones in the world. Yes, you beat Mississippi State, which is good, but Mississippi State's not really a great team. They're a good team, but not really a great team.
Yeah.
Now you're taking on a pretty good Kentucky team.
Uh-huh.
So it'll be interesting to see how the Wildcats deal with the pressure of, hey, now you're ranked, now you're a favorite.
Yep.
How do you deal with it?
Exactly.
And then this is a game that will be played. That's about all I can say. Alabama
7 o'clock game.
Yeah, 7 o'clock, CBS, prime time. Alabama goes to Texas A&M. The Crimson Tide are 18-point favorites, as they should be.
Exactly.
I mean, this is going to be one of those. This is going to be seeing the last of A&M for a while. This is the last time they'll be on the national conversation this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and make my pick for this one. Alabama's going to absolutely destroy them.
Alabama's going to roll them.
Yeah, the Tide are going to roll in this one, yeah. Alabama, I wouldn't be surprised if they win this one by nearly 30.
Yeah, with the way A&M's offense is, especially your starter goes with the starter still being out, you got to have, and the team has just not responded well at all. And there's just no way I can see A&M making this close at all.
I can't either. The only way would be if they somehow held onto the ball for 59 minutes.
They would have to hang on to the football the whole time.
Yes. And then there are 2 games left, or we're going to end with a pick for another game, but another game I want to preview real quick. The game of the week.
I don't know how it's not the game of the week.
The game of the week. Number 4 Penn State at number 3 Iowa, 3 o'clock on Fox. This is going to be a fantastic game.
Oh, most definitely.
Whoever gets 10 points will win this game.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if either team will get 10 points.
You have both teams really good on defense. I would say Penn State has a slightly better offense than Iowa.
Yeah, I would say so.
It still probably would edge that Iowa has a better overall defense.
Yeah.
Like, just the way they have played against every team, just have thoroughly dominated everybody they've played. Now, for granted, you had that little scare with Colorado State, but even then, it feels like that was just a game they just kind of, oh, wait, why are we taking it off the throttle? Let's actually play football.
Exactly. This will be such a fun game to watch. Both teams, Penn State only gives up 12 points a game. Iowa only gives up 11. Both these teams are suffocating on defense, and that's really where the story's going to lie.
Yeah,
these two teams are almost mirror images of each other.
Mm-hmm.
They both like to play defense, and they're both very good on special teams. They're going to try to win the field position battle.
Mm-hmm. This is going to be, obviously, like you said, first team past 10 points probably wins this game. But obviously, just Iowa and Penn State are arguably the best teams in the Big Ten.
Which is very weird to say that Ohio State is the 3rd best team in the Big Ten right now, at least rankings-wise.
Yeah.
That's very weird to think about.
It's still weird, but it's like Iowa has finally, I think they're finally making that push to where they are the team, and then Penn State still once again back in the top, being the conversation for a playoff. But we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah.
For either of them. So are we going to go ahead and make a pick on this one, or are we going to save that for later?
We're going to save this one for the end, being the game to watch. Going kind of back here, Maryland, Ohio State, I think we both have Ohio State taking this one.
Yeah, I think Ohio State probably wins by about 20.
Yeah, that'd be about right for that one. Now, Arkansas, Ole Miss, I like Ole Miss in this one. I think being at home, they'll be able to bounce back and do. I like the Rebels in this one.
I'm going to pretty much agree with that. I think Ole Miss offensively will be a little too much for Arkansas's defense, and I think Arkansas just isn't going to be able to do enough on offense to really keep them with the Rebels. Rebels are just going to fly on them really quickly, and I think jump on them.
Then Georgia and Auburn. I think this will be a very fun one for a little bit. I
Yeah.
think Auburn will do some things that most people don't expect, and then Georgia will do exactly what they do. And Georgia's defense is just so good; they're gonna just shut Auburn down at some point.
For me, I'm gonna probably say the first quarter will probably be interesting, and then after that, Georgia's just gonna dominate.
Yeah, I
I
think Georgia's defense is just too good at the. It is literally one of the most overpowering defenses I've ever seen.
yeah, it's really just weird describing a team that's not Alabama. That's just dominating on
Exactly.
defense.
But I mean, that's Georgia this year.
Mm-hmm.
Then Boise State and BYU. I actually think this will be one of the better games of the week. I think being a rivalry game, BYU and Boise, they're both going to give it their all. But at the end of the day, BYU will find another way to get it done at home. They always seem to get it done in these weird games, but
I would agree with that pick. BYU just they have their defense will come through. Like the offense will have its will do as much as they can to do. They'll just do enough to score, but that BYU defense will be the factor and for them winning this game, as it has been the last few weeks.
exactly. And then Wake Forest at Syracuse. I got Wake Forest winning this.
I'm picking Wake.
Yeah.
It's like Wake. I think is just the better sound team.
Yeah.
I mean, once again, but I wouldn't be surprised if Syracuse actually sides know how to play football.
Yeah, I think Syracuse will keep it close. They'll be motivated for this game. They'll be ready to rebound and forget all about that Florida State game.
But I don't think it won't be enough.
No.
I think Wake will play a lot better will play better on offense versus them and win this game soundly.
Yeah, I mean, the Demon Deacons this year just, it's very weird to think about.
So weird.
But
Wake
when
Forest.
Clemson is bad, this is what happens in the ACC.
Exactly.
Someone else has to take the mantle.
It opens up the floodgates for to win the conference.
Yep. Then Michigan at Nebraska. As much as I want to pick Nebraska in an upset here, I just don't believe in them to finish the game off.
That's the whole key thing. If they can finish games, I would pick them. But I think Michigan will obviously they'll pretty much like sit on the ball almost the whole time and just run it down their throat, kind of tucker them out. But I just don't think Nebraska will just have enough in them to really win this game. It'll be a close one, but I don't think they can get it done.
Exactly. I think the Wolverines will find a way somehow
to still stay undefeated.
Yes. That is,
Michigan's one of those few teams. It's like, how are you undefeated?
yes.
But then you realize everyone else has just not played well against them.
Mm-hmm.
So
And then Notre Dame at Virginia Tech. I think this will be a very fun game. I'm going to take Notre Dame in this one because I still do not trust Virginia Tech's offense. I mean, they only put 21 on Richmond. Yeah. West Virginia was able to lock them down, which West Virginia is a good team, but still.
I would say, depending on who they actually have at quarterback for Notre Dame,
I think that makes a difference
that's
too.
that's fine. It's like if they have the guy they typically started with, I would pick Virginia Tech. But if we're gonna go with the backup that actually has played well out the gate, for the most part, I'm gonna pick Notre Dame, but which I am going to pick Notre Dame because I don't trust Virginia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, it depends on who's starting for Notre Dame.
Exactly.
Then you could say, well, you'd pick Virginia Tech.
Yeah, if I knew Jack Cohn was starting for Notre Dame, I probably would pick the Hokies. But if they go with Pine, I think Notre Dame gets this one.
Yeah, that's where I think it comes down to.
And then LSU and Kentucky. Kentucky, I think the game will get to them a little bit at the beginning, and we'll see some like mistakes we don't expect from them.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, they'll figure it out. They'll realize what they're doing. LSU's just not what they used to be,
No.
and Kentucky will get a win. They'll be 6-0, and we have to deal with this narrative of can Kentucky win the SEC East, despite the fact we all know that will not happen because Georgia literally exists.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's like LSU. I know they can play really well. They have the capability. They actually should probably have a winning. What's their record again because I'm too far away from them.
LSU is 3-2.
Okay,
they do have
probably
a
at
winning
most should
record.
only have one loss, but once again, they didn't finish to win those games. The ones that they lost, they got obliterated by UCLA, and Auburn just played well. Just be straight up, Auburn, Bo Nix played really well. So, but I think LSU will go 3-3. Kentucky, I think, will get by and win that game and go 6-0. Of course, we got to hear the narratives when literally anyone that's a realist would be like, Georgia exists. Stop.
Yeah, it was like if Kentucky wins, we're gonna have to deal with this narrative that will exist for like a week or two of can Kentucky actually challenge Georgia? The answer is no. No one's stopping Georgia except Alabama.
Even then, it's like who knows how that will turn out.
Unless someone else in the top 10 finds their second, third, fourth, and fifth gears.
Exactly. So, but yep, we both got Kentucky.
And then Oklahoma and Texas. This game exists to torture Vegas. I'm just going to say that right now. Oklahoma is a 3-point favorite.
That's odd.
But you never, I have learned from watching other people's failures, you never bet on this game. That's ridiculous to bet on this game. Because no matter what you put down, it will not happen.
Yeah, I'm not really sure on that, but it's like, yeah, it's been a weird game because like you've had seasons where OU should have destroyed Texas and Texas somehow upsets them, and you've had it vice versa. Then you just had those close games that they've had the last couple of years.
Every game since 2014 has been a one-possession game, regardless of regardless of how Texas and Oklahoma played the rest of the season. This is always a one-possession game. Texas always wants to be here.
Yeah, I mean, I would think both teams want.
Both teams want to be there, but Texas always plays their A game in this one.
Yeah, so it's like I'm gonna. I know you like you can. I'll make my pick first. It's like Texas. I know they had that really bad loss or something. Not for granted, quality loss, but they still played bad. But obviously, you finally put in Casey Thompson, and they played well after that game. I mean, you obliterate Tech and you get a good win against TCU. It's like and then OU until last week, their offense has for the most part struggled. I mean, you could say that Tulane game they played well, but they didn't do well in the second half. They only got 3 points on the board in that back in week 1, but they've kind of struggled here and there. Teams they should have obliterated, or at least won by 20. Instead, it's like almost one possession, it seems like. But I'm going to pick OU to win because I think the confidence after that K-State, I think will be enough. I think the defense will be able to, I think this still will be a one-possession game.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it'll come down to a big play by the defense, probably forcing a turnover, getting a really good stop down in the fourth quarter to be the difference maker in the game. But once again, don't count Texas out. Texas could just as easily. My prediction could be easily vice versa.
And I've seen a lot of people this week, a lot of people I know, and just seeing it online. A lot of people I've seen have Texas is like, this is the trendy upset pick of the week. Everyone say, like I've already heard Bijan Robinson for Heisman hype, which is fairly deserved. He's played extremely well. But this is one of those things where I think this is the opposite of what happened. Well, actually, it's not the opposite. This is the exact same thing that happened last year. Oklahoma looked rocky out of the gate. Texas looked okay and looked like they made a lot of improvements. Everyone said Oklahoma has no shot. Obviously, no one is saying Oklahoma has no shot this year because they're not 1-2 this year. They're 5-0. But I get the same kind of feeling as last year where it's like, oh, Oklahoma looks Texas looks slightly better because they improved. We've not seen as much improvement from Oklahoma as we'd like to see. I think Oklahoma wins. I think them being a 3-point favorite is about pretty accurate.
Yeah, it's an accurate one possession.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if this comes down to Gabe Burkich having to hit a big field goal. It would not surprise me at all. I'm going to say Oklahoma wins. Man, I'm never confident about this game, though.
I mean, when it's a game with a history in a game like this, it's like, yeah, you you can say, oh yeah, my team's gonna win, but you don't want to. You're not always the most confident.
Exactly. I think they will win, and that's about all you can hope for.
I mean, you want to think your team can win every time.
Yeah,
But obviously, knowing they will is another thing.
exactly. But the big game,
The game of the
the
week.
game of the week, Penn State and Iowa. There's so much riding on this game.
Exactly.
Who is the best team in the Big Ten? It may not be one of these two by the end of the year, but it sure feels like it will be.
Oh, you most definitely. I mean, obviously after this game, I think after this game, regardless whether Iowa wins or loses, Iowa has an easy time.
Iowa has the Big Ten West.
It's pretty much wrapped up unless they just somehow just play terrible, which I just don't see that happening.
I mean,
then Penn State.
It would be neat to see Bowling Green have a transitive win over Iowa, would it not?
But if Penn State, and this also goes with Penn State, makes it a little different. They still have to play Ohio State,
and they still
in
Michigan and Michigan State.
But the Michigan teams, I don't think Penn State will have that big of an issue with, personally. But we'll get there. But that could change depending on how things go.
Exactly.
But obviously, Ohio State for them is the team to beat. You still got to do that. But for this game, good Lord, this is one of the most evenly matched games of the year.
Yeah, Iowa's only a 1.5 point favorite, which does not surprise me.
No, but it's just one of those things. Just like it's really hard to pick who. This is probably one of the hardest ones because they're so evenly matched. I did say earlier, I think Penn State has a better offense. The issue is you still got to deal with that Iowa defense.
Yeah.
That has shut down teams that were supposed to be good at passing the football.
Yes.
So it'll come down to run game being who can endure the most.
Exactly.
Offensively.
I mean, I really like both of these teams. Both these teams are just so fun to watch. But I think at the end of the day, Kinnick Stadium, once we get after dark, which we will, you see that weird voodoo they have in those cornfields around the stadium, it feels like, being the state of Iowa.
Yeah.
There's a lot of corn everywhere.
A lot of corn.
You get that kind of weird stuff that comes out of the woodwork late at night there. And at the end of the day, Iowa survives. They don't win. Neither team, I think, will really win this game. This is going to be who survives.
Exactly.
I think the Hawkeyes are still undefeated at the end of the day with the Big Ten West left to conquer.
I think, as great as Penn State's defense has been this entire time, they played well. But at the end of the day, like you said, Iowa has the home field advantage, and the weird things have happened with them when it's a night game. Games they typically win.
Yeah,
I think at the end of the day,
being a 3:00 kick, it will be a little. There will be daytime, but
yeah, but I think Iowa at the end of the day will just be just too much for Penn State.
Yeah,
and I think Clifford won't be able to throw the ball as well. I think Iowa gets probably one or two key turnovers to make the difference in the game. I think first team to 10 wins.
I think so.
The offenses, I think, both offenses are gonna struggle.
Exactly. This will be a very good. If you love defensive battles, this will be the game to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that will wrap everything up for us today. I mean, a lot to talk about, but 2 hours later, and we're finally done.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like we've talked about nearly everything. And we still haven't, because, we still have hockey preseason and basketball preseason going on. But I personally don't want to be here for 5 more hours, so I'm good.
No,
we'll cross that bridge when we need to.
We'll probably actually talk about NHL whenever they, the last week of preseason.
Yeah, that'll be more towards
that'll be down
mid to late October. That'll be after fall break. That's for sure.
Yeah, it'll be after fall break.
Alrighty, but for Connor Gray, I'm Cade Kennedy. And have a great night, everybody.